And so we are going to go right now to the next session, and it will be with Rosa Alegria from Brazil. We are so nice to have you here. Thanks, everyone, for joining, for staying. Rosa Alegria is going to be speaking to us for a couple minutes or so, well, 20 or 25 minutes or so, on the topic of, and let me make sure I have this right, transitarian revolution, intergenerational futures for post-COVID times. I'm really looking forward to see what are we going to do with the intergenerational construct, given the push now towards transhumanism and longitudinal aging and that whole post-aging construct. Rosa Alegria, the floor is yours.
Okay, great to be here with you, Claire, with you all. I don't know if this is a strange word for you all, transitarian. It's a neo word, yeah? Okay, it comes from Italian, from age, no, Italian, Etario. So sorry that it sounds like weird, but you can translate like trans-age, okay? Trans-age revolution. All right, so I'm going to talk about intergenerational futures, okay? So you can translate as transitarian or trans-age. I've been involved with this team, instigated by this generational issue since I co-founded with some friends a startup called Pangera, which is a startup to promote intergenerational relationships, creative relationships, because we have the whole opportunity to do that now, the great opportunity in history. Generations are getting together by passions, by fears, by dreams, and by futures. And it doesn't make sense by now to separate them through letters, through segmentation, okay? So this is the first time in history we have 6 generations living together in the same changes. The transitarian revolution is a phenomenon of the transitional world. We are a transitional moment. The concept of generations is very old. It comes from the Bible, okay? Through the family tree of Abraham and the Old Testament. In the past, in the Middle Ages, age differences did not exist. There is no distinction between children and adults. The very notion of generation was built as it did not exist in the Middle Ages, okay? So in modern times, there was the role of states emerging, transforming the collective experience in the family space, and then the schools, but there was no segregation yet, no segregation. But in the industrial age, life has become reduced to production. So human beings were classified into production beings. Then came the biological importance on age, right? So this is the transitarian revolution. 6 generations together, identities no longer fit age groups. Technology is no long an age divide. Chronology is less important than experience. I will talk about that in a little moment. Everyone's voice is heard. Psychological age and biological age, they are living together. They are being considered together. Children have the authority of knowledge of adults for the first time. My granddaughter teach me how to deal with, putting figures in the pictures. So I ask her all the time. She's 6-year-old. Objective lives being surpassed by subjective lives, and we are tribes floating in time. So we are living a dechronologization of life. That is a very, very, a great wisdom from the early past. This is a visionary question from the past. Confucius, the greatest Chinese philosopher, knew that age was not important, age classification was not important at that time. So this is a good question for you to think about. Okay, so take 30 seconds to think about, if you didn't know how old you are, how old would you be? So I don't have much time, so I will run up. But it depends on the moment, okay? Maybe it depends on the feeling, on the experience you're having. So if you don't know your age, maybe you could be older than you are or younger than you are, okay? But there was a time when you died, when you were 30 years old. Today, you are young at 50, you are young at 60, 90, because science is assuring that there is already now people who will live till 150 years old, okay? So this is very funny. This is a newspaper in Brazil. It is in the beginning of the 20th century. What this mean? This is, let me translate. This was a head news, telling the following: a bus entered the house and injured a 42-year-old woman. Old woman. So, okay, a 42-year-old woman. So at that time, that woman was old, very old. And here you see something very, very different. This gentleman is a Dutch citizen who 2 years ago, he decided to go to court to demand a change of age on his documents because he didn't feel like being 69. He wanted to be 45. As far as I know, I think he wanted to join Tinder AF. No? So what if this starts to be a practice? Okay, if each one of us don't feel like having your age and started asking for change. The biologist Maturana, who died this year, he said before reaching the 90s, what he said: I'm going to die before I get old. I'm going to die before I get old. For sometimes we feel like, no, don't having, not being old. So what is this happen? What is this about? What phenomena is this? Why might age segmentation dissolve? Because of, in my view, of three phenomena: hyperlongevity, and digital revolution and postmodernity. So let's go to the first phenomena, the hyperlongevity. Is well, it is this is the decade that United Nations declared the decade of aging, the healthy aging. Okay, so we are living 4 years longer than in the last decade. We are becoming more and more having more longevity. Giant corporations are investing billions of thousands of dollars in regeneration medicine. So this is a very great example in Brazil, how a great opportunity to connect people from different ages. This is an old woman who lives in a nursing house, and this is a child who wanted to speak English, to learn English from this old woman. She was in US and she was in Brazil. So this is intergeneration productive, this TRANSETARIAN revolution. The digital revolution connecting generations like never before through ageless identities. People living together in Zoom sessions, in social networks, in games, collaborative platforms. So age is becoming dissolved. And now going to the third phenomenon, which is the postmodernity. In postmodernity, subjectivity is more important than objectivity. Okay, overcoming age is not just about overcoming the barriers imposed by biology. So we are more like feeling having an age instead of having a document declaring your age. Okay, I go fast because I know that time is short. How much time I have, Claire? No. No. Okay. So we are living in a transitional time, and Baudrillard, which is a postmodern philosopher, says living in this transition is if everything had no original idea, has lost its original idea, freed itself from its essence and its value as a mixture of everything and everyone. So everything is becoming blurred, like cells and bits, artificial intelligence and artificial human intelligence, real, imaginary, global, local, and so on. And the same happens to age, okay? So let me introduce to you a study that was conducted in 2 years ago, started in 2018 and in 2019. It is not a very sophisticated foresight study. It was just kind of a will we had to listen from different generations, their views about the future and their feelings about their ages, okay? So these are two phases. The one is qualitative with 2 focus groups, and the other is quantitative through a virtual survey involving 245 people from all ages. So this is just for us to have the connection with this kind of segmentations, the traditional segmentations, and taking into consideration that the great theorist of generational theory is Carl Mannheim, and his theory is that young people who experience the same concrete historical problems are part of the generation. So these people here lived when they were born, they were in specific historical moments, okay, with this picture that are self-explainable. But I don't want to focus on this. I want to share with you some glimpses of the study. So this is a mandala. We created the mandala to identify singularities, differences, and convergences, okay? So these are some of the specific view of the future, okay? How they feel about the future, what the future will be. No hierarchies, stuck flags, flexible living, raised flags, overcoming battles, intuitive technology. And the middle of the mandala, these are the convergences. So people from 18-year-old to 85-year-old, they have the same, the same visions, the same feeling. They want quality of life. They want to be older and older. They want longevity, to be healthy. They want dialogue and to be heard. They want respect and they want safety. So this is common to people. There are no differences. So what we have to do with this, to make connections for building a new world, for creating new futures. Some other aspect of the studies, the sensing. So the boomer, okay, and the centennials and the X generations, they have the baby boomer. When I go out with the younger people, I feel younger. The centennial, at work, I feel 40-year-old. So it depends on the moment you're living, not age, not the biological age. What you're doing. Sometimes I feel older than my mom when I'm taking care of them. So this is just a new kind of looking at ages. Let me. It doesn't move here. Sorry, it's stuck. Okay. Some other results of the study, the future sensing. The majority, these are all mixed together, okay? So the ages are together. Majority of them, they consider the future contains possibilities, not determined. Only a few people think it will be a continuation of where we are. Okay. Another sensing is the majority, absolute majority, sees that we can influence the future, okay? In the next 10 years, there will be much more generations integration. So they believe in the integration and they want integration. People really are feeling like being, like isolated from each other. And here you see the main two realities that will happen in society in 2030. Psychosis pandemic. It was before the COVID, right? So they called psychosis pandemic, puts the word on alert. So we are in a psychosis pandemic too. And the greater coexistence between the youngest and the oldest. So these are the among all ages. Okay, let me move here. It's not moving. Let me see. It's stuck. Sorry. Okay. We work it with them with metaphors. So we use it the dice metaphor. No, the classic metaphor: the ocean, the road, the blank page, the roller coaster, the river, and the nun. So these are some of the, I like equitative symbolic views about the future. So it is, it doesn't depend on age. So it's a collective vision, right? And some of glimpses from the future. The sense of ancestry is among the oldest. There is a more optimistic view begins when the age increases. Okay, so the older we are, the more optimistic we are. For the millennials, freedom has a cost. And for the youngest, the future is scary. Yes, they are right. They should be scary. So this is some of the statements of these different generations, okay? And so about the grade of optimism, about their positive vision or negative vision, but most of them consider the future will be better in 2030. It is good, taking consideration that positivity flourish when we have to create something, we have to have a positive environment. So having to consideration that they want to be together, there is no sense, no meaning to separate regenerations by now, by letters. This is marketing strategy to sell more products and get more money. So we have to change our view about the generational together. So these opportunities for the post-COVID times that I would like to share. The fragility of anticipatory thinking is found in all generations. So we have to infuse all ages with future thinking in schools, in basics, in organizations. There are more convergences than divergences in the relationship with the future. So this is great. This is a great opportunity. For the youngest, a much broader time horizon is extended. They have an empty temporary territory that can be filled with the past experience of previous generation. They can learn from previous generations. And the older generation can also learn from the young. Problems that affect all ages reside in the opportunities for social transformations through a changing age group. And generation integration in thinking and creating futures allows all individuals to realize their ability to participate in the most diverse areas. So I'd like to finish with this very, very, very short movie that is a kind of manifesto for the ageless world. Sorry. Okay, so this is, I'm sorry, this is Pangera, the ageless world. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. How wonderful. This has really been a great, great, great experience. Thank you so much, Rosa Alegria. I'm going to probably I think it's useful for me in particular because these days I've been feeling quite resentful because inside I still feel like I'm 35, 40.
Oh, you look like.
The clock doesn't say that, but it feels like that. And so I'm really happy that you're kind of going down this path of creating a new way of us talking about how we can have this intergenerational exchange. I'll have one quick question. If there are no questions in the chat, I don't see any questions in the chat. I'm not sure if Annette has a question, but I'm wondering if we can, in a couple of minutes, because our next thing is going to last about half an hour. I'm wondering if you can tell us about how has this been taken up in Brazil, which has a very youthful culture anyway? Have you found a lot of people saying, this is really real, and do they see it as an opportunity to look at some of new ways of organizing even for advocacy around some of the social challenges that have been I guess, rising in the last year to 2 years?
Yeah. Brazil is a young country, but it is not, longevity is coming, and we'll be among the more, we'll have the oldest population among the 6 countries in, I think, 2050. So we are becoming old. I think it is a movement, a common movement to all countries. But I think that we here in Brazil, we don't have any kind of movement towards integration. So people are, the youth people are, vivid. They are entrepreneurs. They are very scared also, about the future. But there is no concrete project that connects all of them. So this is why I am preaching this, this proposal for Brazil and for the world, because we don't have time to go on segmented. We have to be together. We have different intelligences to build new things. And we have to learn from each other. So it doesn't make sense now to be labeled, to be, classified into different generations. And also, we still have problems like atheism. I don't know how to say in English, the prejudice against age, atheism or ageism, right? And yeah, but there is a difficulty, Claire, with the conversation. We still have problems. When we get together with different ages, people find discomfortable because they don't know how to be integrated. So there should be instruments, tools or methods to help them integrate because they fear themselves. And there is a huge potential of integration, but they are all closed in their truths or in their, in their threats, in their scares. And we have to break this down. So I found opportunity to put them together in this study to look at the future and to show that the future can be shared and the future visions have more commonalities than differences. So we have to listen more to this call. Let's stop separating people from ages. I don't know if I answered to you.
See, Annette, you have a quick question?
I always find that this discussion about balancing heterogeneous with homogeneous, celebrating differences and balancing it with common or shared or something like that. It's, is it a pendulum? Is it something we just need to now not see them as different and fuse them a little better? Because one of the things is about, we struggle with two simultaneous occurrences. We have ageism, where people, particularly women of our age, get bounced out of jobs a little earlier, where our careers are nipped as we're starting to peak. But at the same time, in the US, more of our health resources and a lot of our policymaking related resources tilt towards the elderly, which are now we have way more of them than our youth. And even though we all say we want the best for future generations, the spending goes in the opposite direction, and by virtue of being a numbers game, but also that seniors are much more politically active than toddlers. So I struggle with what that commonality, besides a shared future, that I get behind that and how we co-create. But it almost has to be a cultural, and culture is so different from place to place, state to state, locality, et cetera. And having a value that's shared globally that says, we have to look out for each other regardless.
Sure. And we the older, I am the older in the story, we have to take sense of our responsibility, but not a heavy responsibility, just to get in touch with our ancestry, right? Like the Roman, the English philosopher says, we are ancestors, and what's the quality of us as ancestors? Besides having, leaving a legacy to them, we have to talk to them, and we have to put them on stage. We have to listen. We don't have only to talk about them. We have to talk with them. And like in this conference, I see many young people together with older people. So we have kind of urgency. This is urgent. We have to be together. We don't have to be separate because we are stronger together, and we can, we can co-learning. We have to learn from each other.
Well, and I think that maybe the crux of it is that we have to have a shared experience, a lived experience. And, that has been one way to separate by generations is whether you lived through World War I, World War II, are you a baby boomer? You know, which cohort do you find yourself in, and what is that shared lived experience? And that they vary by generation. And now we have diversity of the shared experience. So the question is, can climate change be that shared lived experience where we have to get past the segmentation piece to roll up our sleeves and do something? So.
Yeah. Thanks for supporting the idea, Annette. Yes, that's it. Okay. So I think it's time, right? Oh, we have more questions? I don't know what time is this. Oh.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. I am going to say au revoir until we meet again. Rosa Alegria, thank you so much for your wonderful presentation.